Burp. I can't force burps. I'm envious of people that can force their own burps. Okay. What's up, guys? I'm Justin from Riot Night, and we're about to talk about my top 10 albums of 2020. So these records are just my favorite of the year. I'm not ranking them on any technical scale, and if you don't like them, that's totally fine. Go make your own list, but this is my list. At number 10, we're going with SHARPTOOTH, Transitional Forms. So SHARPTOOTH, I guess you would call them metalcore, if you had to lump them into a category. But what's pretty dope about this Maryland band is they are fronted by Lauren Cashin, and her voice is so fucking dope over this post-hardcore, metalcore vibe that's going on. There's so much to be said about an album that blossoms the more you look into it. And this is one where at first it just seemed like really fun hardcore that kind of filled the hole that Vanna left when they broke up. I think there's so much below the surface. I think there's so much tongue-in-cheek, not humor, but just attitude in the lyrics. But despite being, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but despite being less than original in their genre and some of their playing, the songwriting is fantastic, and especially the way it was produced. I think it's utilizing elements of studio recording and live, if my ears aren't tricking me on this thing. And because of that method, it really helps Lauren Cashin's vocals to be so much more emotive. It's just a really fun head bob and listen. And if you are interested in seeing more females front heavy bands, this is a perfect place to start. So SHARPTOOTH, Transitional Forms. Also note all the dinosaur references in their albums. The first album is called Clever Girl, and this one's called Transitional Forms. Jurassic Park all over this bitch. It's great. At number 9, going with Marilyn Manson, We Are Chaos. I have to admit that this record might not be on my top 10 list if I wasn't already a really big Marilyn Manson fan, which I am, and always have been. If you're a Manson fan too, then you know what I'm talking about, that his last few records were less than phenomenal. But with We Are Chaos, I don't want to say it's a return to form, because Manson's thing is reinvention. He's always changing his look and his logo and his band members and his vibe and his aesthetic. He's always changing these things, and that's one of my favorite things about him as an artist. So he went in the studio to work with producer and co-writer Shooter Jennings, who is the son of famous renegade country artist Waylon Jennings. Fun fact, Waylon Jennings is buried about 2 miles that way from my house. I was actually just at his grave the other day. Long story. Anyway, Shooter Jennings brought a little bit of a country vibe to this album. And I don't mean that it sounds like country or that Manson's doing crossover country with this record. What I mean when I say country is really more in the instrumentation and the little flourishes of steel guitar and twang in just some of the instrumentation, and just the little things that fill up the sound, that fill up those like spaces of silence in between the music. It definitely brings to mind some of my favorite parts of albums like Mechanical Animals, and I think the very underrated Eat Me, Drink Me from 2007. Some of the parts on We Are Chaos here remind me of some of the things he was going for back on those records. He's like 50 now, so this is definitely a little bit more mature, it's a little more subdued, it's a little more focused on the songs and less on the shock rock. I think he sounds great. I think the lyrics are cool. Shooter Jennings was a really odd, but ended up being a very successful choice as a producer and songwriting partner. Being the fan of Manson that I am, that is enough for this to make my list. So at number 9, Marilyn Manson, We Are Chaos. At number 8, the band is End, and the album is Splinters from an Ever-Changing Face. End is what you would call a supergroup. It is comprised of vocalist Brendan Murphy, who you might know from the band Counterparts. He's using an entirely different register and an entirely different type of scream and type of voice. I am a big Counterparts fan, had no idea this was Brendan Murphy until I looked it up and found out. Another notable member is Will Putney, who plays guitar for End. He plays guitar in Fit for an Autopsy, as well as he's one of the most well-known and renowned and praised producers in all of heavy music. In fact, last year, 2 of his records, production-wise, made my top 10 list. And then on drums, Billy Reimer from the Dillinger Escape Plan, one of my favorite drummers ever. On guitar and bass, we got guys from like Misery Signals / Shai Hulud. What End have achieved musically is music that is so devastatingly heavy, so terrifyingly heavy, so disgustingly heavy that I don't even know how to describe it other than just saying terrifying and disgusting and brutal. An assault on all of your, like on everything. Everything that your ears have ever been trained to do, this just nukes it. But within the songs, there's so much nuance and track to track. There's actually a ton of diversity. And the more I listen to it, the more I realize that being that heavy isn't just the product of down tuning and playing fast. It is very much part of the songwriting. God, is there, like, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in audio form. It's just terrifying. It's how these songs were written to be so heavy that is so impressive. It's disgusting, it's terrifying. Terrifyingly heavy, it's amazing. And Splinters from an Ever-Changing Face. At number 7 is the band Loathe with their record, I Let It In, and It Took Everything. Very much like End, they are disgustingly, brutally, you know, just disgustingly heavy. But they also incorporate genres like shoegaze and alt-rock, and they pull from all these different things. I think that everyone I've talked to about this band and every review I've read of this band and every time this band comes up, Deftones come up too. And usually a band that cops so hardly on something or cops so much from something else wouldn't rank on my top 10 list. The way Loathe have incorporated the sound is actually wholly original, and because of the way they're incorporating it and what it's juxtaposed against, makes this listen front to back as an album so entertaining and enthralling. I gotta say, I can't get enough of this record and of every song on it. Shoegaze is kind of this genre that I guess My Bloody Valentine is credited with. It's a little bit meandering and droning and just kind of, like, I think they call it shoegaze because like the idea is you just stand around and like kind of stare at your shoes and just like sway, because it's just kind of this droning thing. This band uses it in such dreamy, airy, atmospheric, kind of haunting ways, and what this album has in spades is groove. I feel like it'd be a very fun band to play bass for. Honestly, if you're a fan of heavy music, or if you're not even a big fan of heavy music, but you're a fan of Deftones, this might be the way to get you into heavier music by starting with songs that take a lot from Deftones. This isn't a technical ranking, this is just me picking my favorites, and I gotta say, I listened to the shit out of this album this year, and I loved every second of it, and it has to make this list. Loathe, I Let It In, and It Took Everything. At number 6, the band is 100th. The album is Somewhere Nowhere. 100th have been around for quite a while. I think their first album came out in 2010 or 11. If I had to compare the early work to anything on this list, it would be SHARPTOOTH. And then on their record Rare, they took a sharp left turn and really added in, I'm gonna use that word again, shoegaze, and a few other influences of alt-rock, which is really coming back around. Both these terms, shoegaze and alt-rock, are genres that have worked their way into metal, and a lot of the bands that have embraced these sounds are on this list. They also embraced, especially with this record, synth pop. Yeah, I'm saying there is a synth pop shoegaze record on my top 10 this year, and that is absolutely new for me, despite it being the band 100th, who I've been a fan of for quite a while. I don't mean to be rude, but a very generic cookie cutter post-hardcore band that sounded just like any other band in their genre, to what they became now, where I can't even begin to name someone else that sounds like them. That is why that this album made this list. It is elements of synth pop, but written by guys who know music and metal and hardcore and post-core and all this stuff. An absolute vibe, an absolute aesthetic that's very hard for me to describe because I rarely listen to music like this. It's very easy to listen to. It's a little bit dancey. It's very, very infectious. I guess it strikes me somewhere between like Balance and Composure and like the 1975. This is one that's great on headphones. It is such a great listen. It is for everybody. I can't think of anyone I know that wouldn't enjoy this. And in fact, the friends that I've sent it to throughout the year have been friends that typically attend like EDC festivals. And this was a band that I think can bridge that gap between people who like what I like and people who go to EDC. This is a band that can work right in between without being too much of either and actually being something wholly unique on their own. This is their 5th record, released independently, and this is the decisions they made on it, and I gotta say, it worked in spades. 100th, Somewhere Nowhere. At number 5, the band is KVELERTAK. I think I'm saying that right. The album is Splid. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right too. This band is from Norway, and most of their songs are in Norwegian. I just loved this band. So I found them because I'm a big fan of Converge's guitar player, Kurt Ballou, and his production, and he produced this record. Not knowing it was gonna be in Norwegian, as soon as I realized it, I also realized that it didn't bother me at all. This band basically combines rock and roll, punk rock, alt rock, American metal, European metal, Scandinavian black metal, and anywhere in between that they want to go. And these songs just rip fucking buttery guitar lick after buttery guitar lick into the most epic, sweeping, sensational, I can just imagine the smiles on their faces while they're playing. It sounds like a band that is so fun to play in. You know, I've heard bands I can compare this to. You know, there's a little bit of Baroness, a little bit of Mastodon. KVELERTAK Splid is just guitar heroics and fun genre blending in Norwegian, produced by Kurt Ballou from Converge, featuring guest vocals from Troy Sanders from Mastodon. If you enjoy metal in any way, shape, or form, not hardcore, not punk, I mean, you can enjoy both of those because those are both in here too, but if you enjoy metal, you will enjoy this record. I don't see how you couldn't. I listened to it all year long and there was a smile on my face the entire time. It's so much fun. It is such a pleasant listen. Oh my God, so much fun. Production's fantastic too. At number 4, Phoebe Bridgers and her album Punisher. This is basically sad girl, singer-songwriter, ballad type stuff. But Phoebe Bridgers has created, I guess, when I say heavy, I'm talking more from the lyrics and the weight of the feelings involved, not the music, because this is mostly very somber, soft, lightly plucked acoustic, like it's really not heavy, but god damn, the lyrics are brilliant. I talk about lyrics quite a bit. I'm a big fan of lyrics, and when I talk about lyrics being good, it's not necessarily rhyming or whether I can identify. It's really, I guess one of the things I judge lyrics on is how much they give away. I like it when a song will tell you what it's about, but leaves enough that's just cryptic enough where you, as the listener, have to do a little bit of digging and you're forced to meet them halfway and uncover the rest of the song. In screenwriting, they call it like the 2+2 rule, where instead of giving the audience 4, you give them 2+2 and you make them make that last bit connection to 4 on their own. And that's what Phoebe Bridgers does on this. It is an absolutely haunting, dreamy, surreal. So it's basically very sad and depressing, but it's absolutely beautiful. And it's not heavy at all until you read the lyrics, and then it weighs a ton. Phoebe Bridgers has been doing so well for herself, working with Conor Oberst and Julian Baker. And I think this record got nominated for a bunch of Grammys. Not that those mean a goddamn thing in regards to music, but it's still pretty cool. So yeah, Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher, really, really great record this year. At number 3, Greg Puciato, or Picasso, don't know how to say it. I'm just gonna call it Puciato. Greg Puciato, child soldier, creator of God. He was the singer of the Dillinger Escape Plan, among many other great projects that he did intermittently. And this solo album of his is actually one of 2 projects he released this year. The first being Killer Be Killed, which features him along with members of Converge, Mastodon, and Sepultura. And on paper, that's the record that should have made this list. But as I listened to his solo record and the Kill or Be Killed record, while both were great, his solo record, I went through like stages with. I went through stages of confusion at the disjointedness of it, but then what it really turned into was an appreciation for the pure artistic expression that he was exuding with this record. This is an artist making music on his own terms, the way he wants to make it, and he doesn't give a flying fuck what anyone thinks, and that's kind of the most punk rock thing I've ever heard of. That is absolutely the attitude that the Dillinger Escape Plan has always had, and that Greg's always it's always been his outlook, whether he's doing The Black Queen. With this record, you know, it's all over the place. There are songs that you could totally get down to, if you know what I mean. You know, like sex, you know, like sex, you heard of that? Or there's songs where you could just open up a fucking raging mosh pit and elbow someone in the face. And there is no real flow with the sequencing of the album. Like it's a little confusing, it's a little jarring, and it definitely took me a few listens. This record was one that when I first listened to it, I went in with expectations that if it was great, it would be making my top 10 list, and to not gush over Greg P from Dillinger, because that is one of my favorite bands, I will just say that I was not expecting this record to make my list or rank so high, but there is so much beauty in the just pure artistic, raw expression of what he's doing here, and I loved it. So Greg Puciato, Child Soldier, Creator of God, number 3. My number 2 favorite record of 2020 is the band Touché Amoré and their record Lament. Touché Amoré is a band that all of my friends and I absolutely adore. We have for years and years, and we talk about them, and we always look forward to them coming to town and every new release that they have, and we keep up with the band members, and we're fans. I'm a fan. I don't want to say that my fandom is why they're on this list, because it's absolutely not. They earned this spot in spades. Their new record, Lament, is fan-fucking-tastic. Under Ross Robinson's production, which Katya and I talked about in our Glass Jar video, they made a much more uplifting, it was kind of an upswing emotionally. And what he's talking about now is finding the little things in life that can salvage the rest of it. That no matter how many bad things have happened, and no matter how much awful shit there is, and no matter how much pain and heartache you've been through, you need to latch on to the silver linings. And this record really feels like him appreciating his silver linings. If you looked at their earlier records like Parting the Sea, Between Brightness and Me, some of the songs were like a minute and a half. In fact, most of the songs on the record were like a minute and a half. Whereas on Lament here, it's a shorter track listing, and the songs actually just feel like more produced rock songs. I think Ross Robinson had a lot to do with that. The guitars are very shimmery. There's steel guitar all over this as well. I wouldn't use the word shoegaze here or country, but it's just a really nice shimmery brightness to a lot of the musicianship here. And to me, it's not Touché's best. I still think Stage 4 is my favorite record just because the weight of the lyrics along with just the amazing music they make. Stage 4 is really the album that can probably stick with me forever, but I gotta say, Lament, man, this band is amazing. I found a lot to relate to, I found a lot to be inspired by, and a lot to be uplifted by. And it was pretty cool to see a band that can go from like the depths of despair on Stage 4 to really noticing the silver linings on a record like Lament. So this is my number 2 record, and I think that everyone should check this record out. I don't care what kind of music you listen to Touché Amoré. Okay, real quick, before I get to my number 1, I have a few honorable mentions. These are just bands I feel like people should know about, and this is a platform for me to mention them, and so I just gotta do that real quick. First and foremost, Deftones. They put out 2 releases this year, one being a brand new album called Ohms. Pretty fucking solid. Not my favorite by them, but for them to be cranking out great music today, fuck yeah. The second thing they did was a remix album of White Pony as a 20-year anniversary celebration of that record. It's called Black Stallion and features remixes of all the songs by people like Robert Smith and Mike Shinoda and Purity Ring, and it's actually a really, really cool listen. Enter Shikari, a band that I fucking love, and their new record this year, you know, it wasn't my favorite because it is just too poppy for me. But if you listen to the album front to back and you actually read the lyrics and you read what it's about and what the music is symbolizing and what the soundscapes are symbolizing and what each song means in the context of the greater message, I think it's a natural progression from where they were going. I can't say it's even close to my favorite record by the band, but I gotta just give them props for how good it is, even though it's not really for me. I have to mention AESOP Rock and his record, Spirit World Field Guide. AESOP Rock is hip hop or rap. I don't know which one. I don't know the difference between the two. AESOP Rock, Spirit World Field Guide is one of the better, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even say better, because it's just my taste. Some of my favorite hip hop. This is not his best work, but it is damn impressive. And if hip hop or rap is something you fuck with, and you don't know AESOP Rock, get on some AESOP Rock. I need to mention a band called Nothing and their album, The Great Dismal. If you've heard My Bloody Valentine, yeah, it's like My Bloody Valentine meets Movements. It's dark and dreary and it's shoegaze, but it's awesome. And I did not get this aesthetic and this vibe from anything else this year, and I thought Nothing was great. It's not one of my favorites of the year, but it's just something so cool and unique, and it just scratches that type of itch. And I don't think anyone else I know knows this band, so I just have to give that a shout. And lastly, I have to shout out a band called GULCH and their new record, Impenetrable Cerebral Fortress. This band is disgustingly heavy like some of the other bands we talked about, but their punk rock attitude dripping with fucking lack of fucks. Like there's none, like there's anti-fucks. If you were to listen to this album with fucks, you'd walk away without them. It would take your fucks from you, because that's how punk rock this thing is. So now we're on to my #1 record, my favorite album of the whole entire year, Code Orange, Underneath. Now I have a ton I could say about this band. I could talk for another half an hour about just this record and what it meant to me, what it did for me musically, but what I just want to say to sum it up is that Code Orange did a really, really great fucking job making a heavy album. They've been a band for quite a while. They started super young and they've got all kinds of street cred. And on this new record, this 14-track album, to me, it is their Iowa. Slipknot. You've heard of Slipknot? Doesn't sound like Iowa. What Iowa was for Slipknot, I think this album is for them. Not commercially, but just statement-wise as a band. They are drawing influences from industrial music, metalcore and hardcore punk, and then they're also bringing a lot of 90s grunge and alt-rock. The highlight of just the listening experience is two things. One is the seamless integration between real instruments and electronics and the way they write their songs with that in mind. And in the mix, I don't think I've ever heard real instruments and electronics mixed so well together on a record. And then two is their guitar player slash vocalist, Reba Myers, and her diversity on vocals. Yes, her riffs are sick as fuck, and she's got just disgusting tone in her hands. But on vocals, she can sound like Alice in Chains. She kind of sounds like Shirley Manson from Garbage in a few songs. She's backing Jamie Morgan on the screams in some songs. She nails the chorus of Underneath and Ottoman Carbine, and just so many tracks on this album are bolstered by her vocal performance. Every iota of sound on this thing was meticulously plotted out. And that attention to detail, that level of execution, and just the way it all comes together to sound so cohesive and purposeful. And I played in bands, I have a lot of friends that play in bands, and I gotta say their entire aesthetic, between, you know, even from their music videos to the concept of the record, to the way they dress, to their live performance, it is all one vision and one goal that is so well realized and well executed. I'm absolutely in awe of what they're able to achieve. It is something that, this record came out in January and my jaw dropped last January. Not only did they drop their record, but the way they were able to pivot for 2020 and the pandemic and the live specials they were able to put out. They did an acoustic live show and acoustic live album as being one of the heaviest bands in the scene. And that is, it just shows their diversity. It shows their willingness to push their own limits and their willingness to basically do everything that they can do to make this work. I am absolutely hooked on this band and I love Code Orange. They're definitely not for everybody. They're a little bit heavy, but they're fucking so much fun to bang your head to. Code Orange underneath, my #1 record of 2020. So guys, you heard my top 10 along with some honorable mentions, and whether you agree or disagree, or you've got some of your own, or if you think I missed something, fucking drop a comment and we'll argue about it. I'm just kidding. We'll politely and respectfully converse about it. Because respect is the name of the game. Cool guys, that was, you know, that was a lot of fun. It's about 3:30 in the morning and my whiskey's running out. We'll see you in 2021. Look out for Katya's video. And yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.